Hey man, how was your tournament on Muskogee? You doing it good? Yeah, it was fine. Completely fine. Yeah, but in all seriousness, it wasn't that great. Let's talk about it. This isn't the video I was planning to make. I was planning to make a Scott Martin style video where did the whole practice in one video and then the tournament in the next video. But for that to happen, I had to have had a good tournament, which it wasn't good. There was so many things that went wrong. Like, it just did not go my way. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. About a 9-hour drive to get up there for me. And after getting up there, stayed at a great place. It was a fish lodge up by, what was that, Gibbon something lake? There's a lake just north of Muskogee. Stayed in a place like that. Great place to stay. Plenty of boat room if you're ever up in that area. But let's get into day one. So day one of practice was not good. Caught I think 2 fish that whole day and just wasn't on it. I was fishing too deep. So I was like, okay, this isn't working. I need to move up. So I caught 2 fish on the first day of practice and it was kind of rough, and my practice was cut short because midday way through the first day, this happened. Flung an ear on a prop. And you can see it didn't hit nothing. There's no dents or anything. It's just the Mercury Fury decided to throw an ear on it. That took up 3 hours out of my day right there. Luckily I was up there with one of the guys that was from our state, John Clayman. Thank him for selling me his spare prop. So he came down, placed a prop on the water, got going. Didn't find out much. So we decided to try cur the second day. So first day's wash, we're not locking, we're just driving down, going out of the boat ramp on cur. So we get down into cur, tried to see if there's any spawning fish, went to bench back pockets, stuff like that. Just wasn't working. I didn't have any fish. And then I got onto something with like these wing dams, really shallow, and all these little dikes that came off the water down there. And actually had a pretty good day of fishing, but I forgot my camera, so there's a lot more to this story. Went in there, I mean, square billing over the rocks and the little wing dams at about, I want to say, I didn't catch anything deeper than 2 foot. So that was my first hint, okay? They are up as shallow gets, and they were on those rocks. I was up on these rocks and I caught probably a 15, 16 pound limit, which I thought was really good. And on the second day, I'm thinking I'm gonna go to cur. But I was gonna give the river another day and then figure out if I could figure out the river, then go back to cur the next day. But I did go down to cur, caught this nice big one right here, at least a 7 pounder, beautiful fish. And that was gonna be my plan, but we decided to check the river again Monday. So we went to the river on Monday. Let me back that up just a hair. Sunday, down in cur on the tournament. What ended up happening was my engine threw codes. It was throttle response things. Turned out it to be with the hot foot issue. I got that fixed. So threw a prop the first day. Second day, I freaking threw codes on my motor. Took a while to get fixed. That cut my day short at cur too. Monday, we decided to go back into the Arkansas River. And driving down to cur, we noticed the Menard Bayou went all the way up. So we were gonna go try the Menard Bayou. And that's what we were gonna go do. Went into the Menard Bayou and I got on a killer buzzbait bite. I mean, I could catch fish at will. I was catching 4s and 5s, like really constantly. So it was all, once again, it was all in 2 foot or less. Just as tight as you could get a buzzbait next to wood like these two clips right here. If you see on this clip, I put it right next to this wood coming out and it's barely into the water. This guy comes up and just nails it. It's like, all right, so that's good. And I didn't get this next clip, but right after that I caught another one. But now I'm coming up onto these rocks that are just in the part of the Menard Bayou. And so I decided to pull out a square bill. But I caught two more right there on a square bill just off the little stretch. So now we're back up in this kind of pool right by where the island is in Menard Bayou, and it's really shallow right there. So I picked back up the buzzbait bite and started hucking through there. And it's shallow and as tight to wood as I could get. I was getting hits like this one right here, just over the top of wood. There's a beautiful little fish, barely a keeper, but it was up there. And so I proceeded to throw the buzzbait around, caught some small ones, but then this one right here, right up against these three sticks, just took me 3 casts in that one spot. I hit all 3 of those sticks, and on the 3rd stick, this big old 5.5 pounder comes out. I was like, this is how it is. And I continued to move back and go into these little pockets in Menard Bayou. And all in a foot of water or less, I caught some more on a buzzbait, went into this next back pocket, caught them in here, these clips right here, just flipping. I mean, this is 8 inches of water, 10 inches of water. I mean, my trolling motor is touching the ground, that's why I'm not moving. So, in my mind now, it's Monday, and I have about a 22-pound bag out of Menard. I have a good bag sitting out here in Menard. So now that's on my prime list, because the more I went into it, the more I caught fish. So I was like, okay, now I need to figure out, something else. So I decided to run all the way down towards the dam, and it was a fun ride down there, but I got onto a underspin bite in the grass. Once again, shallow, 8 inches. And the depth is very important on this because it's what screwed me up. I couldn't catch anything deeper than 2 foot of water. So, but I go back into there in 6 inches, 8 inches of water. There's these grass mats up there. And I was just running the underspin over the top of them. And every grass mat I came to, I got hit. Just straight up, I could pull 3 out of a grass mat. So I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spend my morning in Menard. I'm gonna be buzzbaiting, flipping, hopefully, probably get a limit. Like, it's gonna be good. So Monday was good. Loading back up the trailer, what happens to me every day is something bad happened to me every day of this tournament. I ended up having to make a sharp cut with my boat and broke the taillight on my truck by the step up front. That kind of screwed me out right there. And on that Monday night, it rained. So it rained, it got a little bit cooler. The cold front really hasn't come in yet, but it got cooler and it rained. Not much, it only dropped about 10 degrees, but water temp stayed stable. But every bayou or creek was washed out. So I went out on, Tuesday. It was our last day of practice. We had to be off the water by noon. What ended up happening on Tuesday, went out flipping, had 1 bite, got a call on my phone, picked it up, had a bite, kind of went to set it, I moved my neck, my phone hits, goes into the water. Yep, I lost my phone, so I got me a new phone. So all my pictures and everything that would be in this video are in the bottom of the Muskogee River right now. And Cato Creek, to be more specific. But, so that was my day. I spent about 1.5 hours, 2 hours trying to get my phone back. Some guys had a net in their boat. I tied it on. It was a 9 foot, and I wasn't getting it back. So, had to go get a new phone, so I had to leave the water early. I was off the water at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Had to go get a new phone. All right, the bad stuff's only happening in practice. Well, cold front comes through that night, and it goes from a low of 55, 60 degrees to a high of 50 degrees. And it was frosty in the morning when I woke up. And just all the other things, contemplating. I don't mean to talk bad about my co-angler that I got a draw for on the first day, but they were calling boat numbers. He was still on the dock. So that kind of off-put me. I'm one of those people that I gotta be there early. Gotta get prepared, listen to what's going on. And it's my first regional, so I didn't get to do any of that. So that kind of offset me. First day of the tournament rolls around. It's a beautiful morning. It's cold, but beautiful morning, and windy as all get out. I figure, all right, I had a 22-pound bag in Menard. I'm going to Menard. That's where I'm going. I fish all through Menard, and I caught one. I spent 2.5, 3 hours in the Menard Bayou and caught one fish. And just to give you a perspective on that, on Monday, I probably caught 30 fish in the Menard Bayou on the first day, on that Monday. And first day of the tournament, just couldn't get anything. So I was like, all right, I gotta go. So I went down to Sulphur Creek. It's a very tiny creek, and there was people back in there, but you gotta put power poles down and duck to get into it. I mean, you'll almost scrape the top of your motor to getting into Sulphur Creek, but you can get back in there. That's where we saw some locals catch a whole bunch of fish on Saturday. So I knew they were in there. I just couldn't get them to bite on Saturday, but once again, I was fishing too deep. They had it up shallow. So in my mind, I gotta still stay shallow, because that was the whole ordeal, the whole ordeal. So I'm fishing up shallow and get 2 unders in Menard, or Sulphur, sorry. Get 2 unders in Sulphur. It's not going good. So I was sitting here going, all right, I gotta figure out something. I mean, I think it's 11 o'clock, noon at this point. I mean, I'm already halfway through the day. I've caught a total of 3 unders, and I need to make a move. So I wanted to see if the rocks were playing up there. So I came out of Sulphur, and that whole wall coming out of Sulphur along those trains is rocks. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna square bill it just for a few hundred yards to see if they're sitting on rocks. I got 2 bites going down that as I came out. They were all spots, but they were under spots. Wish I could have kept them, but all 13-inch spots. Went through there. It's like, all right, they're on rocks. I need to find a place where there's gonna be bigger fish. I run all the way up to the wing dams. I think that's what they're called, is wing dams. There's only 2 you could get access to, one safely, the other not so safely. If you look at the bottom of my boat, I didn't get into the one safely. So the wind's blowing 45 at this point. It's crazy. And I ended up trying to back in, I dented the screen on my boat, and I was like, all right, I gotta figure out a way to get in here. So the middle one, there was already like 5 boats in there, and Chris Johnson was in there in those wing dams. That's where he caught his fish, and he ended up going by. That's where he ended up catching his fish. I watched his video of how he caught his fish, and one thing he said is he was pulling it off the bank deeper. I was just fishing above their heads. That was my problem. I'm still on that mindset. They got to be shallow. And if anybody would have asked me, hey, look, a cold front came through, this is going on, and there's heavy wind, what would you recommend doing? I'm like, okay, drop by temperature, I'd slow down, fish a little deeper. Which in the tournament, I don't know why, it didn't click into my head that I should have been doing that. I ended up middling around there, square billing. I caught another under up in that wing dam, but once again, I was probably fishing way too shallow and scraped up the bottom of my boat getting in there. I just didn't know what to do at this point. Went up, I think it's the Neoshi, one that goes up to the lake, and hit a few of those pockets. I mean, I went into the far back of some of those pockets where nobody would go. I pushed over logs, got 1 bite back there. He was on, then got off. It would have been a keeper easily. It was like a 3.5 pounder. That's all I had. That was my day one. All that stuff going on just really put me off at this point. I don't know what to do. I spun out in between all the stuff that happened to me on practice, all the stuff that happened during the tournament. I mean, not blaming my co-angler, but he was just on the later side, and it's like, dude, they're calling boat numbers. I gotta get going. I just don't know what to do at that point. So had to wait for him. I mean, I just got spun out first day. Completely spun out, and it kind of wrecked me. That was my first day. Came in with 0 fish. Caught 5 fish, but they weren't keepers. I had to have a massive rethink, and I was like, the only place I know I needed to get at least 22, and it ended up being like 21 pounds, 8 ounces to get into the cut to go to the championship. So I was like, okay, I got 22 pounds in Menard. I know there's 22 pounds in there. So second day, didn't draw a co-angler, gotta wait, kind of in my own headspace. Camera stopped working, so I think I have one catch because my camera was messing up. That's for a different video, but I have a way of setting up a 360 now to where it's not gonna mess up. What ended up happening was I went into Menard and I just tied on a power drop shot. I was like, you know what? I'm either gonna catch that 22 pounds again and have a shot, or I'm not. So I went in there and putting on a power drop shot, I did real well. And one thing I didn't learn, which I kind of figured out towards the end of the day, because it's when I caught my one keeper, I was catching a bunch of unders. And my one keeper came off the edge of the creek. So there was that flat in Menard, and it drops off immediately. And all the bigger ones, I think, just pulled off that 2-foot flat, and they were just barely in there. So once again, I'm fishing over their heads. I caught 50 fish, 49 of them weren't keepers, just on a power drop shot. I just wanted to catch fish. I mean, I had fun last day, but I just wish I could have done better. And I think that was my issue, is I just spun out. I completely spun out. I didn't think through what I should have done, and I think that's a problem a lot of people have. I mean, it changed from practice to tournament. Cold front came in. I should have slowed down and fished deeper. Like Chris Johnson, he was flipping, but he was doing those rocks and those wing dams, and he was fishing them and pulling it out, and he was deeper, and he was fishing a lot slower. If you go watch his video, he talks about how he was going a lot slower, just dragging and hopping a jig, and he pulled it out deeper. And that's how he was catching his fish. And second day, he caught it on a spinnerbait. But once again, slow dragging, going deeper. I was fishing above the fish's heads, and that was my issue. But on the final day, I did at least come in with one keeper, so it wasn't last, but it was pretty close to last. That's how my day went. So I got off there, and I got to make a mental note for future tournaments. I really got to stop and think, like, what would I do if, this cold front came through? I know to myself, if somebody asked me, they're like, hey, I'm doing this, cold front came through, I'd be like, look, rocks hold heat, fish it a little deeper, slow down, the fish are gonna be on them, warming up. And that's what they were doing, and it did not click to me. And I really need to make a mental note of that for the future, so this doesn't happen again, because I'm actually really disappointed in myself. Hopefully I can do good in the Bass Nations and just go directly to the championship and avoid the qualifier next year altogether. So if you're here at the end of this video, you made it this far with my BS ramblings, why don't you check out this video on how to get better returns on your ball head jigs for your sonar, or subscribe. I'd appreciate it, and I hope you all catch them. Have a good day.